keep digging. There's lots of information out there. It's moving very quickly, so lots to keep up with.
Can we take a quick poll? How many of you already own an NFT? Okay. How many of you have a wallet? Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, nice. I think to that point as well, we talked about this a little bit before, it makes even more sense with the size of this crowd. We can make this one be somewhat interactive. We don't have to hold questions to the end. If you feel compelled to ask something and want to dig in, let's just do it as we go through. What's up, Lynn?
People are coming from the other event, and it ends at 7, so I assume that the crowd's going to get bigger.
I like the intimacy.
I'd say it's
I hope they don't come, but...
quarter after, so I think we'll roll through, and at the very least, they get to hang out with the cool people as we move through and network after.
Yep.
Cool.
And what's the other event?
It's the Charlotte Innovation Week reception.
Oh, okay.
You already know all those
I
people,
know
though.
about that.
Yeah.
I didn't go. I came over here.
Yeah.
Well, again, Diamond Doll to my left is the head or co-head of NFT Charlotte, our local Web3 organization dedicated to education and facilitation of growth in the Web3 space. Next cool event is Tez Talks next week. She'll share a little bit more about that later, I'm sure. And Rethink Ledger's founder, Bart Kant, he's been building in Web3, blockchain, and DeFi for about 5-6 years, and does a lot to help move forward in that space in Charlotte on both finance and healthcare. So evolution of the web. Since we did have a few people that have wallets, NFTs, anybody want to take a shot at what Web 1 was? Go for it. Oh, you were just making a motion.
Oh, no. Web 1 was where you were just interfacing with you couldn't even like really navigate the data or anything like that. It was just you looking at the screen and just regular text, you know what I'm saying? You reading it and it just displaying something back to you. That was it.
Yeah.
Like back in the day,
like DOS.
Think
yeah, when I was young.
early 90s to about early 2000s, Web 1 primarily thought of as read-only. So static web pages hyperlinked together visually reminds me a lot of Wikipedia, probably the first thing that still exists that I think of. We didn't have the ability as a user when we landed on those pages to really input and share our information and our data the way that we do today with what we're used to, which is Web 2. It now became a little bit more back and forth. It's the platform iteration of the internet. It's where we've seen the predominant growths of these social medias, of e-commerce, cloud computing, and smartphones vastly accelerated that growth, and the ubiquitous adoption, frankly, across the world, including in economies that didn't have some of the infrastructure that you find in North America or in Europe, which is pretty cool. But one of the biggest challenges and biggest reasons why people are excited about moving off of that is that, I think as we all know, the social media platforms in particular, you are the product. Everything that you put on there, that data they own, and they monetize you. The excitement around Web3 is it switches that model. It leverages blockchain, decentralization to democratize the internet in a way that has not been possible before. And ownership at the foundation core of that piece. So blockchain technology, decentralization leads to a whole new world. So if you've got wallets, you've got NFTs, hopefully you recognize a few of the cool ones on the far right. I remember all the ones on the left, but I'm not sad that they are not around very much anymore.
Like that?
Yeah, please.
So I didn't hopefully you introduce yourself to your history. So I'm coming from tech, Microsoft and Julie. I worked in hardware supply chain, and I think this is a really kind of key point about the evolution of Web 2 to Web 3, is the infrastructure is vastly different. Like right now, let's take Visa for example. Everyone has a card, a debit or credit card that has a little Visa or MasterCard on it. Visa only has 2 data centers in the entire world that they own, right, that they're not partnered with, that support all the transactions that occur across the world, right? So if they're to go down, if there's to have a cybersecurity attack, now they have a very strong protection program, but if there is an attack that knocked out both of those, that's it. Like the whole debit credit card industry, right? The confidence is shaken in that. In this model in Web3, the infrastructure is not owned by one single entity, one single corporation, right? In the same way that Amazon has AWS, Microsoft has Azure, right? They support the physical infrastructure, the data servers, the centers that allow us to communicate and transact on these apps. In Web3, that's not the case. There's not a single corporate entity.
Yeah, and kind of building on top a little bit of what you said, right? So one of the big concepts in Web3 is what is called self-sovereign identity. I don't know if you ever heard that term, but self-sovereign identity is a movement, I consider a movement, and also a technology, a set of technologies that, you know, whereas the Metas and the Googles and the Amazons collecting a lot of data, with self-sovereign identity, you know, you are in control over your wallet, your encryption key, your password, and then you can kind of start to manage what data you're, you know, sharing with the world. And that's kind of another kind of big concept that a lot of people saying, well, I like that better than Meta or Google or Amazon knowing exactly all the things I do and where I surf and making money out of it.
And not sharing the wealth. Because a tweet, right? Right now you can't make money off a tweet. But in Web3 on the blockchain, you can put a quote out and potentially sell it. Jack Dorsey sold his first tweet for a lot of money. So that's a key part of ownership too. Your wallet is really the entryway into this ecosystem. And not only can that allow you to play in the financial space, but now, like you said, in terms of content, you know, your ownership is connected to it. And you can buy, sell, trade, do whatever you want with it.
Yeah. Cool. So, blockchain basics, we've touched on a little bit already. You know, this is one of the foundational elements to Web3, is this technology that facilitates decentralization. So, what is blockchain and like how is that made up? Blocks are collections of records. Probably why, in my mind, cryptocurrencies are the first thing that caught a lot of people's attention, because it stood out as a very easy to grasp concept on the blockchain, with ledgers holding financial records within a block. Important aspect here is that blocks have limits. So as you fill up one block, you have to mine another one. And blocks, subsequent blocks are validating all of the preceding blocks, and that's how you end up with this chain. That's authorizing everything that's occurred on the blockchain. You want to add stuff there too? We can.
Yeah, and it's a concept that's obviously started with Bitcoin, but it has expanded into a lot of variety of different technologies, right? So started with kind of, you know, the blocks and linking the blocks to each other, but then started to kind of see a movement around, you know, how do we provide other alternatives that are more ecologically responsible. So you're starting to, you know, see technologies that are talking about ledgers, distributed ledgers that don't need the mining aspect of it, but then can still provide the security by people who have ownerships voting on what is the state of the ledger. And then another trend that we've seen come forth is sometimes you need to start a little bit more centralized and move into a decentralized world, because not everybody is willing to take the costs and the complexity of going directly decentralized. And so if you think about an evolution where everybody's has their own databases, you could kind of need to think about how can we adapt these users, these communities, to kind of ease into the decentralization. And sometimes centralized ledger could be the starting point for more of the business-like solutions.
I created a grossly oversimplified example, since a lot of the people in this room have already gotten their own wallets and own some NFTs. We'll go through this kind of quick, but blockchain or cryptocurrencies allow you to document transactions, either digital ones, or you could actually pay cryptocurrency to buy something in real life. I would hate to be the guy that ordered pizza with like multiple Bitcoins a dozen years ago, but it happened. In this example, you have Alice giving Bob Ethereum for something. It could be a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT, or it could be something physical good. And now that record's recorded, Bob owns that Ethereum, and he's now buying something else from Charlie. And we see a whole new block holding that piece of the puzzle of this blockchain. And it goes on. And every time you fill up the block, you have to create a new one that's validating all of the records from that whole blockchain. Everybody make sense? Any questions? Try to make it easy. And this is about where I hand off to the real experts.
Yeah, I would say I'm not an expert in this space, but I'm really passionate about it. I always start with like kind of my story and journey when we talk about NFTs. I found out about NFTs during like the fall of last year when things were booming, right? I think when we all heard about it, when the news was going crazy talking about NFTs. And like I mentioned, I was already in tech, so when I met my husband Tony, who will join us later, he was like, okay, you're in tech, but how are you not in this? And crypto never really, it made sense. I was learning about blockchain in college, having studied engineering, but the practical use, what could you really buy besides an expensive pizza with some Bitcoin, at the time? And then NFTs, I started to find out about them, and that just clicks. I know it sounds confusing for other people, but to attach a value to a digital asset and be able to use the crypto to buy and sell that thing, like I was like, aha, I see the potential of where all this is going. And so the simplest way, I know you have some slides, maybe you can start slide. Oh, okay, let's go back. Yeah, so the simplest way that I explain NFTs stand for, does anyone know what it stands for? Non-fungible token, right? And so when we say fungible, we say that's like fiat currency. Your dollar equals my dollar. We could trade it and it's the same value. Non-fungible doesn't have that same trade where it's equitable, right? It's art. It could be valued at anything. And so NFTs are really, the value is driven by the community or the artist who sets the price. The NFT itself isn't this piece of art. All of these which you're seeing, those aren't necessarily NFTs. The metadata on a smart contract that is describing that digital asset is an NFT. I like to think of it as like the birth certificate of an object on the blockchain. Because an NFT doesn't just have to be a piece of art like this. As I mentioned, an NFT could be a tweet, it could be a song, it could be an album. I have friends who are dancers who have put up their works as NFTs, filmed their performance and put it up as a work. So birth certificate on the blockchain, it is taking the same data that like when you were born, it says the time, your name, location. It doesn't get into your attributes sometimes. They ask what your race is or whatnot, right? Your gender. These NFTs all have attributes that are ascribed to them. And those attributes help determine what the value is too. Specifically for a project like this is what we call PFP, a profile picture. It's really when he mentioned Bored Ape Yacht Club, CryptoPunks, I'm sure you've heard of. This was really when NFTs started to blow up because essentially these projects created artificial value by creating art that had rarer traits than others in the collection. So you start to create a market where people are like, well, I want that one. There's only 0.1% that has a hat. I want that one, right? For clout, sometimes there are benefits, utility given to owners that have specific traits on their NFT. But that's, we can get into that a little bit more. But it's really that simple. It is a certificate on a smart contract that helps an individual understand who is the originator of that item, whether it's a digital or physical asset, and who owns it currently. To his point earlier, the transaction from A to B. As you buy and sell an NFT, new metadata is written onto that smart contract to say what wallet owns it, or who owns that piece and what wallet is it in.
Speaking of wallets.
Speaking of wallets, so he mentioned we have a Tezos event. Most of you all have a wallet in here. If you don't, I have some handy worksheets where you can write your seed phrase and take notes and things, and I'm happy to pass those out. But I think getting a wallet is the entry point into Web3 for the masses, for us regular folk. MetaMask is one of the most widely used ones. It's easy because you can add it as a Chrome extension, although I would suggest Brave. It's a secure web browser. You can also download it on your phone as an application. To this point, all wallets exist for all blockchain protocols. This is where things get kind of sticky, and I think where people are like really confused because there's more than just one blockchain, right? There are different blockchain protocols, which means that there are going to be different wallets that correspond to those protocols. But MetaMask at this point in time supports Ethereum, which is the blockchain that most NFTs, all the ones that you just saw on the last slide, are Ethereum-based smart contract NFTs. And also Solana now. Solana is in beta. I don't know if anyone has heard of Solana. Yeah. That is touted as a more environmentally friendly blockchain because, to Bart's point, it is using a different algorithm to validate transactions, and so it's a bit more energy efficient, so they say. So that's what's awesome about MetaMask. You can really get your entry point into most of the NFTs that are sold on the marketplace through that wallet. As I mentioned, this Tezos event that we'll have next week, May 23rd, that's going to be focused on the Tezos blockchain, which touts itself as carbon neutral. It's a more artist-friendly blockchain, I would say, or community. And so we're going to help people set up wallets that aren't MetaMask so that they can buy, sell, and trade on that blockchain. Keep track of seed phrases. So the thing about ownership is you have to be responsible and accountable for your assets. Right now, the bank, right, insures you federally, for $250,000, right? So if something goes down, at least, okay, I can get that. If you lose your seed phrase, you've really lost access to get into your assets. And so it's very important where you would store your social security card, your birth certificate, any of your important documents. You most likely want to store your seed phrases, and you should have multiple, right, for many different wallets because it's best to diversify where your assets lay. There are hard wallets. MetaMask is more of a warm, right? It's on a server. It's not on like its own hard drive. But those are very critical to make sure that you can always get into your assets if you forget the password. And then add to your crypto wallet. In order to transact, you do have to add crypto. What's awesome is there's, again, like I mentioned, there's different blockchains. So before you get, if you're leery about buying NFT, because I think we only had like 2 or 3 people who bought it, NFTs that are on the Ethereum blockchain can get pricey. When you start adding gas or anything, you spend 200, 300, 400 bucks, right? That's a decent chunk of money. What's really cool is that there are test networks. There's an Ethereum sidechain called Polygon. You can get basically like free tokens. There's a faucet, is what they call it, where you can get free tokens and play around on some more lightweight blockchains like Polygon and buy, sell, and trade some cheap NFTs. But you are going to have to add crypto to your wallet, whether it's through a faucet for a sidechain or it's actual Ethereum. The best way to do that is Coinbase, Binance, Cash App. What's awesome about MetaMask, you can do it directly from MetaMask. They support Apple Pay, MoonPay, and Transact are 3 options that you can use to transfer money from credit or debit to your MetaMask. I'll just put an asterisk. Coinbase is not my favorite. He mentioned that there's this learning curve or this transition gap from Web 2 to Web 3. Something that I think rubs me a little bit wrong with Coinbase is if you want to move money out of that wallet, they ask for your ID and a photo to go along with it. And part of the benefit of blockchain and this ecosystem is being anonymous, right? Having words and numbers that link to your wallet and your assets. Letters and numbers, not your name and ID. And I think this is a good thing because it makes it more accessible, especially for people of color. I think with predatory loan, we don't have to go into the bank's histories, but there's not, the level of trust between certain communities and these financial institutions, I feel has been broken over time, and there's many examples. And so to have an alternative to that system where they're asking for your social security and all that information is very valuable. And I think this is why so many people are passionate about this ecosystem. So that's just my caveat on Coinbase and some of these others, and something to be mindful of as you continue to expand and explore this space. Do your own research. Yeah, I know. I think, this phrase is kind of annoying because I'm trying to, but there's so many things to look up. But when it comes to finding the right NFT project, if you just want to buy art for the sake of art, if you're already a collector, anyone into collectibles, trading cards or
Comic books.
Beanie Babies. No, just kidding. I don't think you have to worry about this as much. There are some artists that I've met in the Web3 space. I just want to support their work, especially on Tezos. It's cheap. It's just a few bucks for some cool art that I could put as a background or whatever I wanted to do, use it in a video. I don't need to sit there and do hours of research. Some of those profile picture communities where they're starting to promise things, they'll say, I have a roadmap and we're going to have in real life events and we're going to create a video game and we're going to have 3D avatars. This is where you need to do some research. Not everyone has a strong team, right? Not everyone has experienced people who can actually execute on that roadmap. And so hopping into Discord is a tool. It's feels like Slack in terms of having channels, but also has that essence of Telegram and GroupMe. That's a good way for you to meet people in the community, get in touch with the project founders, their artists, start to have conversation and get a feel for, are they trustworthy, are they growing, that type of thing. Minting. NFTs must be added to the blockchain, so when you do find a project that you want, sometimes that project might not have launched yet. There are going to be projects, if you go to OpenSea, that's the largest secondary marketplace, you're going to see projects that have already been minted at a point in time. For new projects that are just launching, typically you will go to their site, it'll say connect wallet, and it will ask you to mint. And minting is the process of originating or putting the information, the NFT that describes that asset on the blockchain for the first time. Very similar to a coin or dollar being minted by the government, right? They put their stamp of approval at all and then send it out into the world. So yeah, new block of data is created, the info is validated, okay, this is what the thing that we're trying to trade, this is the wallet that it's coming from, this is the wallet that it's going to, and at that point, we didn't really hit on this, the thought is that with blockchain, the data is immutable. You can't go back and be like, oh, never mind, it was a different owner in the beginning. Once it's captured and recorded, it's permanent. I think there are some backdoor channels where you can change small information, but I'm by no means a computer engineer or scientist. And then, like I mentioned, secondary markets. OpenSea is the most popular, but there's some awesome ones like Rarible, Super Rare. There are so many marketplaces. There are some curated ones like Foundations, where that is invite only for the artists. Like I mentioned, each blockchain, they have their own corresponding marketplaces. So it can get a little bit tricky and overwhelming. And then there are some applications like rarity tools or even plugins where if you own the NFT, when you're on OpenSea, you get to see the data of how rare something is, and they'll show you just how valuable that purchase is. But yes, OpenSea has an app as well, and you really can buy, sell, and trade NFTs from your phone, although it's not touted as the safest. It's really that accessible at this point.
Yeah. And if I want to just add to do your own research, right? So, you know, I had the advantage and disadvantage of being early in crypto and in the NFT world, and I just learned the hard way, right? So that meant, you know, the early days when Bitcoin was under $200, or I got into, you know, crypto X, Y, and Z, I got scammed, right? I didn't follow the right link with the lock on the web browser and thought this was kind of, you know, where I would store my crypto, and, you know, I got scammed. Same way with my NFTs, you know, I said promising, you know, the world on building a community and building, you know, an interactive app, you know, but didn't really happen. And, you know, 2 months later, the Discord channel just got disconnected, and, you know, I owned, you know, X number of NFTs that, you know, the price you see dropping tremendously. So, you know, my own research has been, you know, sometimes you gotta fall on your face and learn the hard way to kind of really understand the concepts around security, protection, putting your wallet in a safe environment. Don't click on links that don't make a lot of sense, promise you minting opportunities, first access to anything, because, you know, you got to be careful.
Yeah, we, like, in the NFT community, if you haven't gotten rugged, we say, like, you haven't really participated in this community. And I just want to stress, he was mentioning don't click on links like Discord. If you download Discord and you find yourself like really starting to look at NFTs, there are a lot of like copycat accounts, and they'll do that where as soon as you join a legit Discord, then the copycat account will see it and go in your DMs and be like, hey, we're minting early. And like, I knew all of these things, but I started to teach my 15-year-old brother about the space, and he told me about a project he was excited about. I said, okay, I'll give you some crypto to get in. And the mint hadn't happened yet. And so he got that Discord link sent to him. No, Shayna, this is the right one. I know. They sent it to me. Okay. I mint. As soon as I do, money, poof, gone. No NFT in the wallet, nothing. Turns out the mint was about 2-3 weeks later. And so it happens on Discord, it happens on Instagram, it happens on Twitter. All of those places, you will get bots. I had cooping ladies accounts hitting me up 24/7 trying to take money and seed phrases. So you just have to be, this goes back to ownership and being accountable for your own security. You have to be very vigilant in this space.
We hit on that a little bit.
Yeah. Copyright
this is
ownership. Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, each NFT project, you have a question on this one?
Yeah, I have a question about the wallets. Would y'all recommend having like a different wallet for each each project or like a certain amount of projects to split up that risk?
I would do it, I would think about it like, what's your most valuable? Like, what's your long-term play? Transfer those to hard wallets, like ASAP. And when I mean long-term, I think like 5 to 10 years of something you're like, no, they're gonna continue to grow, or even 3 to 5 years. And then like, things that you're just trying to flip real quick, you know, I would keep them in a medium wallet, no need to switch that to a hard wallet. So I would think about it in terms of like your strategy, your investment strategy, and separate them in that way. Not necessarily like a hard number, X amount need to be here, X amount need to be here. But I also do think in terms of safety, you hear stories of people like having their assets, forgetting their seed, like people who bought Bitcoin years ago, they don't have their seed phrase anymore, and now it's just gone. Like, I think a way to mitigate that is to have multiple hard wallets, you know, that you're transferring funds across or splitting up, especially like crypto. So just in the event, if you did lose one, it's not everything gone, just a portion. Yeah, so copyright versus ownership. Every project is different. There are some projects that they all give you varying degrees of rights. Like Bored Ape, I don't know, did anyone hear that? Like Bored Ape, one of the members has a restaurant, it's a burger shop. So he used his NFT as like the whole branding of the space. Other projects aren't comfortable giving away those rights. Some, like there's this one called Deadheads. It's a TV show, really, but the community owns the NFTs that are actually featured in it. So they're owning the rights of the character in the show. And so they can do whatever they want with that, merchandise it or whatnot. But you really have to check with the project to see what you can and cannot do. Yeah, usage. Like I mentioned, NFTs can be anything. And what's really awesome is, you know, if they are digital assets, you can show them off in the metaverse. I don't know if anyone has kids. Anyone have kids in here? Yeah, do your kids play Fortnite? No, okay. Well, I like to use that example. Right now, like kids, Roblox, Fortnite, they spend massive amount of money on, you know, accessories and skins and whatnot, but they don't own any of it, right? And so what's really cool is, you know, I think we're building all of this for the next generation anyway. Like we're testing it out, but when we talk about metaverses and play to earn games and all of that is really, you know, for that generation and the ones coming up after them. But what's cool is all of those assets that you own, you will be able to use in the Web3 ecosystem. So art, you could put in a gallery. You could have your own gallery of just we could have a Charlotte, NFT Charlotte right now. We could make a Decentraland gallery of just Charlotte-based artists. Game assets, like I said, Fortnite, right now you don't own those games, but as these worlds are built and play to earn games, you will be able to own the assets in those games and buy, sell, and trade them and make money, which you can't do in 2K and other video games and, you know, Grand Theft Auto right now. Music, that one's gonna be really cool because, like, I don't know if you heard Chainsmokers, they're giving a % of royalties from the whole NFT album to their fans. That's never happened before, right? I mean, Nas did it for a single song, but as an artist, to be like, I'm gonna give my fans back this for supporting me, that's huge, right? And if fans can now have some ownership where they can go use it, you know, as backdrop music for videos and things that they're creating and not have to pay, you know, any money on top of that, like, that's a win. Limited edition film posters, yeah, speculation, money laundering. I mean, this is where it started. Let's get real. Art has always been used for money laundering, right? Basel, rich people went down there. So, how much is this painting? Can you evaluate this for me? Oh, worth 20 million. Great. Like, you know, tax right, you know, that type of thing. So obviously this space is going to have a bit of that, especially when we talk about anonymous wallets. But this is part of the community holding each other accountable too. And it's really cool to see if you ever sit in a Twitter space, there are some projects who have rugged or where it's come out as the founders aren't trustworthy or have been a part of shitty projects before. People will go up there and really, you know, cancel culture hard. So it's on the community to be mindful of these things, but Yeah, it is an inherent danger of the space. We won't act like it's all rosy. Like, there's good and bad.
What's up?
Hey, two questions. So, when you brought up the example about music or chain smokers, can NFTs represent real world aspects, and then can they be divided into segments where multiple people can get in on one?
Yeah. So, we'll come back to that. That's called fractionalizing.
Okay.
The first part. So, like, does anyone remember Macy Gray?
Does anyone
course.
remember me? Like,
No, because
think we are.
no, because some of my audiences they don't. I work with her in the NFT community, and we were recently working on a project. Her costume designer, Linda Stokes. I mean, she's done everyone. She did TLC, No Scrubs, everyone. She did all of Macy's, and so that costume designer's daughter launched a project. Macy hopped on the project where she did these like voiceovers. Not only that, she was like, I'm gonna do you one better, because they're all family friends, and we're building a project. She said, I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna put, you get a free copy of the vinyl album, 2 concert tickets, and there was something else. So yeah, I scooped up 2. I was like, oh, I scooped up 1, and then the project owner sent me 1. But that's one way that you can tie real world utility. Because I have that NFT in my wallet, now when her new album drops, I get access to listen to it, I get the vinyl copy, and I get 2 tickets to go see her live.
Does anybody know Gary Vee?
No.
Gary Vaynerchuk? So his NFT, when I jumped on for it, for the sole reason that gave me access 3 years to his conference, right? So tomorrow I'm going to Minneapolis, first year of his conference, and it's basically the NFT that gives you the right to attend his conference. If you don't own the NFT, you're not coming into the door, right? So we're gonna have to show, the wallet. The Coinbase wallet is a sponsor. So we're gonna have to show the Coinbase wallet to get into, the Viking Stadium in Minneapolis to attend
awesome.
the conference.
And Coachella did something similar.
So yeah, I like those examples, and I also work for a software company that we're currently in the process of integrating into MetaMask, because of a number of the communities that we host are using tokenized role access, where your NFT is your authorization to be in that space. So that's the digital space. But simultaneously, they are doing some in real life events as well, where certain NFTs give you access to the digital community, and then there's an additional level where now you get to come to a Gary Vee type exclusive event in real life and meet an even smaller group of people that have bought into this community.
It's crazy. It kind of cuts out Ticketmaster and all of those.
Last question. Are those classified as securities or not? Like
Depends.
So yeah, okay. So that's an interesting question. I would love to hear more on the DAO side.
Yeah, so what is a security, and what is a token? Is a token considered a security? Well, it's been a big debate over years, starting with crypto, and the main test is called the Howey test, right? So the Howey test kind of defines that, is this security giving you a promise to get benefit from, the gains that, the project is bringing, right? And so if that is a yes, kind of in the most simplest way, is considered security. Most NFTs would not fall into that category because they're representation of art. Now they could be considered a commodity, right? Similar to what most of crypto is, a commodity. So if you buy it at a certain price and it goes up or go down, when you sell it, you have to report to the IRS what you bought it for, what you sell it for, did you make a gain or a loss, and then report it on your taxes.
Yeah, and the piece about the securities is kind of tricky because there'll be like for the real estate, real estate has been trying to figure out a way to incorporate NFTs. And you were talking about like breaking up an asset. There's something that's called fractionalization, where multiple people can own like one NFT that represents either physical asset or digital asset. To his point, like if you as a project starter are guaranteeing that they're going to make income from it, then it gets into that. But you can do, there's some workarounds, right? Like you could, the funds that are made, so he'll talk about DAOs more, but in a DAO, say funds are generated and are being brought in. Instead of promising to give them out as dividends, you can create a treasury. And then with that treasury, you can start scholarships maybe if someone is applying, they have a project idea or something, like Flamingo DAO. They give a scholarship with their treasury. So it's still a gray area. I don't think anyone has been taken to court quite yet in that area, in that space, but I'm sure regulations coming soon, and so move quick. If you have an idea, get crafty and move quick. Marketplaces, yeah, we touched on this. So OpenSea, biggest marketplace. NBA Top Shop, if you're into like trading card collectibles, that's a cool marketplace. They're on the Flow blockchain. Flow is cool because you can buy NFTs directly with a credit or debit card. I think that makes the space a lot more accessible for people who aren't comfortable just kind of going heads first and buying a bunch of Ethereum. Foundation, like I said, that's an invite only. But this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just a few starting places.
What is DAO?
All right. A decentralized autonomous organization, right? So kind of alongside, the crypto world, DAOs kind of came into existence. Probably, the first time I heard about DAOs, probably 2018, 19, on BitShares, blockchain that still exists, but, it's now fell out of the top 1,000. They came up with a concept of decentralized autonomous organizations, but it really kind of started to take off in the world of Ethereum, right? And putting kind of a new concept out there that can you build an organization that's more decentralized than kind of current legal structures? That's kind of the genesis, and giving the power to the people that are part of the organization. And with the Ethereum blockchain and smart contracts, you could point to a certain kind of program that's can be open source, that everybody can read on what kind of the interaction is of that program, and then people start voting with their wallets, right? So do you have, if there's in that organization 1,000 tokens, you own 20 of them, then your voting power is 20 out of 1,000. If you own a lot more because you invested a lot more, you got a bigger share of the voting power. And so you kind of start to see communities grow towards, how can we organize ourselves? How can we use blockchain, these ledgers as kind of a mechanisms to build organizations and build better organizations than the traditional structures. That's kind of where my view is on a decentralized organization.
So I have a question for you on this one while we're getting started. This is, I think, one of the most exciting aspects of Web3 and the potential ahead to me of disrupting the structures that exist and building it better. How likely do you think it is that DAOs are capable of growing to the point of being larger and being more sustainable than some of the biggest corporations in the world?
Well, I think we're now in the testing ground of it, right? So, but the evolution that has been made from the time of, when I first looked at it, BitShares in 2018 to where we are today, we have made significant progress. Now, what is the biggest hurdle is the legal aspect, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty around kind of, what does this structure mean from a pure legal perspective? In the DAO world, in the smart contract world, they say code is law. But that's true in the internet space, in the digital space. It can be true in the digital space, but a lot of times that's not the case in the traditional way. So you have kind of this kind of weird situation right now between kind of the digital space and DAOs and kind of the traditional space with the legal frameworks. Now, a lot of things are being done, a lot of kind of actions are being taken from a traditional perspective. New legislation in Wyoming that kind of puts the concept of DAOs kind of into a more legal framework. There's more and more appetite in Congress to kind of bring more clarity, because a lot of entrepreneurs in this space, when there's uncertainty, that means like people are not really want to put all of their money into that basket, right? So if there's more legal certainty, then you will see more people kind of investing into the concept. So I think we've made a lot of progress, but there's still some hurdles to overcome.
And
Yet to
like
be seen.
Wyoming, that DAO, city DAO, was required to create an LLC.
That's right.
So to your question, in that state, both have to coexist. At least one person has to be responsible with an address to represent that DAO, since they were purchasing land in Wyoming.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Yeah, so think about communities, organizations in the Web3 version. That's kind of where we see this kind of evolution going. So maybe go to the next one. So a lot of different kind of structures have been constructed over the last I would say a lot of 2 years. You have DAOs that have become really corporations. That are run like corporations. You have DAOs that are kind of very much community and member-driven events. A lot of things have been kind of defined on how who's a member. What is ownership in member? Is ownership in member crypto? Is it its own specific token? How do we allow people to transact? Is there some KYC involved to become part of a DAO? Some DAOs are like that. You need to present your name and address, and they will surely check it that you're not on some list that is not transacting in the United States. So a lot of different structures have come into play from a DAO perspective, and we'll kind of see how this all plays out in the near term.
What would stop like financial whales from pulling money together and basically doing the same shit they're doing now, where you're saying like for the company structure it's a hierarchy, but let's say we all pull our money together and we buy up a bunch of crypto. What stops us from controlling the DAO if we have most of the voting power?
Nothing, right? So, and that's the power of you voting with your money and putting it into that organization. Good example, Constitution DAO, right? So, 3 months ago, a copy of the Constitution came up for sale. Usually those go to auction houses, and some big rich investor picks up that special artifact. All of a sudden people in the Web3 community said, well, what if we all contribute and bring in enough money to buy that piece of history, right, and make it part of the DAO? Unfortunately they came very close. They still got beat by a very rich guy out of New York. But you saw in a very short period of time people coming as a community together and say, we're going to kind of pile all of our money together and make a bid for this Constitution. The same way where there's DAOs to buy NBA teams, talk about trying to buy Chelsea when that was up for sale. So now in a very short time frame, you see kind of these communities come together and saying, let's bring our money together and start to act as one voice in one community and try to get a specific asset that we're interested in.
Could you put a cap on how many tokens any one wallet could hold?
That could be kind of all based on how the smart contract is coded, right? So yeah, it's all run by code, right? If the rule in the code says, the maximum ownership is 5%, then it will reject if your wallet X and you're at 4.9%, you want to buy more share, it could kind of prevent you from doing that. Now, does it prevent you to get a second wallet and a third wallet and a fourth wallet? Probably not, but then you can run tools, chain analysis tools saying, well, if that person builds a second wallet, third wallet, and a fourth wallet, well, where's the origin of his funds coming? Does it come out of wallet 1? Well, then wallet 1 and wallet 2 and wallet 3, they're all connected. They're all coming from the same person. So we can still prevent that kind of interaction and try to make it more fair.
That type of level of scrutiny that is available is because it's public, too.
Because you can read and write and observe and monitor and build a whole bunch of analytics tools onto top of public one.
Let me go a little too deep into it. When you send money to like Binance,
Yes.
notice on like Etherscan, it'll say like Binance 3 or whatever. I guess when you send money from a wallet to Binance, does it register to a particular like wallet, or is it just like a whole bunch of different locations? So if I have like one wallet and I send it to Binance, or
Yeah. So what exchanges do, right? So, and I think all of them operate in a similar way by all these centralized wallet exchanges. So you have centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. Centralized exchanges like Binance, like Coinbase, they have the concept of hot wallets and then cold wallets or cold storage. And what they do is when they get crypto in, it sits in a hot wallet from them because that's kind of how they interact with people coming in and out of a blockchain. Then they have the whole trading environment, which usually is run on a database, right? So when you trade on an exchange and you see on your Coinbase wallet or Binance wallet money going up or down, you're basically on a database, right? And then what to protect the funds, what those exchanges do, they move a certain set of funds into cold storage, which is not linked to the internet, and only people inside the organization with a lot of security around can access those, can bring those funds back into the hot wallets when people are moving in or out of the exchange. So to answer your question, no, not all of your kind of it's not all concentrated in one wallet, because that would be too high a risk for the exchange. So it's multiple wallets, and then you have the combination of hot wallets and cold storage. All right, so DAOs have kind of grown significantly. I remember the days of the DAO hack in 2016-ish, 17. At that point in time, everybody got so excited about the concept of a DAO in the Ethereum world that up to 25% of all the Ether that was out there was in this one project, this one DAO. And the concept of, they called it the DAO. The DAO was that it's going to fund other projects in the Ethereum world. Well, something bad happened, right? The smart contract code that was built in Solidity had some bugs. Some really smart people figured out what that bug was, and they drained all of the funds, right? All of a sudden, 25% of all the Ether in the world that existed at that point in time was in the hands of a hacker, right? And so that's where kind of the community came back and said, we need to do something about it. A lot of people lost a lot of money. It was still early days of the blockchain. It was more of a kind of community. It was driven by a couple of individuals, and so they came back and said, we're going to go back in time, right? against the philosophy of blockchain that everything is immutable and nothing can be changed. But they went back in time and said, we're going to go back to the time where that didn't exist, and they basically started a new blockchain, which is currently the Ethereum, and the old one is called Ethereum Classic. So kind of proves a little bit of the point that there's a lot of risk in the development of that code, these smart contracts, that are there, especially when you want to build solutions. But since then, it has evolved tremendously to a lot of organizations, a lot of decentralized organizations that use this as a way of bringing power to the community, let them be part of the decisioning power from DeFi projects on the decision on how much interest rate do we give if you put your crypto into this DeFi project. Do we give them 4%, 6%, or 20%? Right? That's kind of the voting power that people have in a whole set of DAOs that are there. And how big has it grown to? 11 billion US dollar asset under management? Maybe more. I can't really know what it is right now.
That's a cool website you guys should take note of. It's called Deep DAO.
Yeah.
If you wanted to look and see, you can see how many people, how many tokens are out there for a particular DAO, how many active users, how many people are actually voting, and really get a sense of what does that community participation look like.
So DAOs have kind of exploded in all kinds of industries, from social communities to art to music to media to philanthropy to fashion, travel, metaverse. You can kind of pick a flavor of your current community, and there's probably a DAO on that. And a lot of it, voting power now is kind of driven by tokens / NFTs. So it's where you see the two coming together. A couple of examples I want to talk about. One I like, a couple of things I like. Maybe you've heard about it, some, or maybe not heard about it. Links DAO. And one of the things with these DAOs is do you know the people behind it, right? So we talked about being rugged, and are these founders anonymous? Are they over here? Are they somewhere in China? Or are they French developers recently had a bad reputation on being rug pullers. I don't know why, but here's an example of somebody that's been very well known in the crypto world, established himself, Mike Dudas, and he likes to play golf, right? And he said, golf membership, it's a lead thing, costs a lot of money. I'm going to build a DAO, and we're going to kind of bring ownership to all the NFT owners, and we're going to buy a golf course with our money that we're raised through the NFTs. And so he's kind of put out there his NFT, two members, the global member, the leisure member. One has more rights than another one. They haven't figured out which golf course they're gonna buy, but eventually it will be all the NFT owners that will decide on which property they will buy, how much money they're gonna spend, how much money they're gonna keep for operating the thing, what is the cost to become a member of it, what's the cost to play around the golf. So they're just bringing back a membership access to a lot of passionate people. Golfers, they're passionate people of what they do, and there's now a DAO that's specifically focused on buying a premium golf property and running it and operating it, and I don't think they will stop at one golf.
Are you in this DAO?
No, I'm not in it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not in it. But if you're in this Discord, there are very passionate people, right? They're very passionate people, and they're just putting their money in with what they like.
What are they doing? Scooters ordinance?
You can do a ski DAO.
There might be one though already. You might want to look.
Yeah. So, cafe DAO, right? I don't know why every coffee project has to start in Seattle, but cafe DAO is a very small concept at this point in time, but it is bringing back kind of, going real against, Web 2 or Starbucks in this situation where, a couple of people are thinking about, can we start a community of coffee drinkers and make it an interaction between kind of an organization that brings you the coffee, the baristas, so the employees, the baristas, the kind of physical space or virtual space or co-location space, and then the coffee drinkers. And so in this particular example, you buy a cup of coffee for $5, which becomes immediately 5 tokens. So it's linked to $1 is a token, and when you buy that coffee in exchange for your $5, 5 tokens are being created. 3.5 goes to operating expenses because it costs money to buy the coffee, be in a location. 1 token goes back to the buyer of the coffee, so they get a reward, right? If they buy 5 coffees, basically they get their 6th one free because they can take their 5 tokens and get a free cup of coffee. And then 1.5 goes to the DAO, and so to the organization. And now the organization starts to build up funds, and then the members can start voting up what do they do with that fund. Are they going to buy rent a physical space and open up a coffee shop, right? So think about kind of the new models that you can start building with combining NFTs with organizations and bringing reward structures into the picture. You had a question.
So is that concept partnered with like the traditional concept in the sense that they have to go to that coffee shop, right?
So the
physical coffee shop already, or
they started up with setting up a booth in front of the NFT museum in Seattle, right? So they're pop-up at this point in time. Pop-up with a couple of baristas that are kind of brewing coffee. Okay. Big Three. Any basketball fans over here? Yeah. You know the Big Three, Ice Cube. His NFT was stopped because just the market all of a sudden became very sketchy in the last 3 weeks. But this was one that I was considering investing in because you think about Big Three as a very early league with a lot of potential. A lot of fans that want to watch basketball in the summertime because there's no other sports to really enjoy at that point in time. He's bringing his NFT to through membership. The Fire membership where you basically become owner of a team. 12 teams. They'll expand in the future to more teams, I'm sure. Gives you access to the games in front, front row seating, access to the players, be part of the training sessions, be at before and after parties. So kind of bringing kind of that ownership concept to a league, and then kind of the second tier, right? You don't have to invest as much money, but you're become part of who's going to be the MVP of the game. You can start voting as an owner into who do you think was the best player of the game. Can kind of be on a chat or a video live stream with the players before and after the game. So you get it basically becomes an access level, right? An access level to, you know, a sporting league that's, you know, still in its growing stage, you know, with a lot of potential, and giving back a lot back to the fans, right? Where this now, you know, if you think about all the major leagues, it's owned by, you know, really wealthy people that, you know, have all the access, all the kind of benefits, and here you start to bring back this to the fans. And so something that kind of really fits with the model of Web3. The NFT got stopped, you know, because the market was just going crazy a week or two ago, so it wasn't the right time, but something to kind of keep an eye on, and I think is very promising. And then, you know, something we are working on right now, the first corporate enterprise DAO. So a lot of things we talked about, you know, and 99.9% of DAOs are business to consumer, right? So all the examples we talked about is business to consumer. We're currently building business to business DAOs. And at the forefront of this, you know, I don't think there's many out there. We picked up a patent to kind of write down the concepts of what that could look like, where we're taking a lot of the concepts from the B2C space and started to kind of build out the concept into healthcare, really with the purpose of lowering the cost of, you know, what hospital pay to medical manufacturers. It's one of the biggest costs in how hospitals run their organizations. You know, they have to pay a lot of money for any device that goes into your company, into your body during surgery, and so instead of business to consumers, you know, we're going to give voting rights to hospitals, and they can bring their voting rights together to basically do group purchases of these medical implants, medical devices from medical device companies. And so it's a business to business transaction, not a business to consumer. And so I think there's a lot of kind of concept, but we got to take care of a whole bunch of kind of difficult stuff, right? So back to, you know, what is the legal structure of this? You know, how do we give voting rights? You know, is every hospital, you know, is a small hospital, does it have the same voting rights as a big hospital? They cannot be transferred, right? So you cannot sell as a hospital your NFT to another hospital. No, you know, so there's a lot of structure that needs to be put into this concept. And then, you know, think about, you know, how this you start to collect, if you're bringing group purchasing power together, you know, you start to have some assets into the data of how, you know, these medical devices have been used, how successful have they been, how much is the result. If somebody brings a new medical device that's better heart valve, right, that costs a little bit more, does it really, you know, bring better benefits to the user? So there's a lot of then information that can be gathered that can be become a data asset, you know, and help with better decision making, more transparency in pricing into healthcare. So something we're working on, but still need to be fleshed out. Okay. So that was DAOs.
I have a question about the last one. Did you say you had a patent for the idea?
Yeah.
So when you went through the patent process, how did you?
Well, so we did patent applications, so we haven't received it.
Exactly. So just the application. How did you describe the idea to avoid the like special exceptions or like judicial exceptions, since it's like similar to like what we know in terms of like enterprise kind of, I guess, hierarchy or structure, but it's kind of in a different realm. How did you distinguish or differentiate?
Yeah, so and the patent process is a lengthy process, right? So, and we put our concept out there, right? And with a lot of these concepts, you don't know if it's going to be accepted, right? So we did provisional patents, so we can change, you know, in our next go around, make a lot of updates on it. And this is where we kind of bring in, you know, legal counsel to understand kind of all of these aspects or quirks that might help or hurt for getting approval on the patent application.
Was that a different application than our traditional one, the provisional application, or was it the same?
So we did a provisional, right? So because we wanted to be protected, because we started talking to venture capitalists, and so once you start to talk to the sharks, you got to be protected. And so now we're working out the details for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, for NFTs you talked about like minting and then the secondary marketplaces for finding out about them. Is there something equivalent for DAOs? How do you find out?
Not really. I would say kind of, there's the tokens could have value, right? So, think a lot of the DeFi projects, DeFi DAOs, they all have tokens, and those tokens are on public exchanges. So there is a market. All the NFTs, if there's NFTs in the DAO, so Links DAO has NFTs, you can look up what's the value of a premium versus a regular NFT on Links DAO, and that's price discovery for you.
So like, I would suggest you could go in Deep DAO, you can see what DAOs exist, and see what interests you. But like for the NFT DAOs, like there's one called Pizza DAO. To get in, you go onto OpenSea, and there are pizza boxes. When you get a pizza box, and you're part of that DAO.
So, we talked about a lot of the concepts. I'll just go a little bit underneath the covers of what drives all of this. I don't want to take it too long because it can get into some very technical details. But we talked a lot about smart contracts, and people ask, like, so what is this? What is a smart contract? What does it really mean? So I tried to put a little definition here, right? But the main concept is that it basically starts to self-execute, right? So you write a set of code, condition, some inputs go into the code, it validates what those inputs are, and then it knows what to do. So it executes that, and it becomes like the terms of the agreement between usually a buyer and a seller, and it's written in code, right? So the agreement is code, right? Versus the agreement is a sheet of paper that you have signed, right? That's really the basis of smart contracts, with kind of the promise that it can execute itself, it can create transactions, and those transactions are trackable and irreversible. So once it gets executed, that's the end. There's no coming back into, say, oh no, I didn't really mean this, or it's what it is. Good question. How secure are they? Various degrees, right? So, and maybe go to the next slide. Right, so go to the next slide. Right, so I wanted to show you an example of what a smart contract looks like. Right, so most people don't know. This is Solidity. Solidity is a programming language that's a smart contract language on Ethereum. So all the Ethereum NFTs are kind of linked to Solidity. Solidity is a new language, that I would say, how it's been designed and evolved is pretty bad, right? So that's why we had the DAO hack, right? So people started looking through this code and said, I can find a lot of loopholes into this thing, and I'm going to take advantage. I'm a very smart programmer. I know how to kind of circumvent, buffer overflows, and I don't want to go into too much detail here, but Solidity as a programming language, as a secure programming language, is pretty bad. I was part of an blockchain accelerator, got a chance to talk to some really smart guys in Silicon Valley. Their sole job is to verify and read this code and try to find all the loopholes in this code. And they get paid a lot of money, right? Because when something goes wrong on the Solidity contract, it could be really, really bad, right? So that's one aspect, right? So that's just writing the code. And then I put at the bottom, it's like what do you need to do afterwards? And that's a whole set of steps, a whole set of projects, a whole set of interfaces to really make it, go to a public blockchain. So, jumping into this space, it's a great career. There's a lot of opportunities. You can kind of make really good money becoming a Solidity programmer, but it is complex, right? And you need to know what you're doing. And a lot of projects, NFT projects, have been developed by, smart kids that, just new into programming, or people that have converted from other jobs into programming. And they have not taken all the precautions and security aspects of what this can be.
So, as I'm looking at this, 5 years, this can slow down. So who manages this code base?
Right. So the way it works is that you're in the case of Ethereum, you write this code, right, and you put it onto a blockchain and you link it to an address, right, and that address is basically the equivalent of your wallet. So the person that puts this on a blockchain, on an address, is the owner of this code, right? So they can decide to upgrade it, change it, move it, change it to a new version. They have a lot of complexities of doing that to make it all work, to kind of do the upgrade process. But that's how it becomes owned by the individual or the organization that puts this code out there, and that they retain the ownership of the code.
So will that person pay for that service to be managed?
You need to pay gas fees, so you need to, depending on how complex and how big your program is, you need to pay to put it onto a blockchain, yes.
What happens when gas fees are eliminated?
So gas fees in the Ethereum world are not planned to be eliminated, but there's going to be a different model in the future. So Ethereum is going to go from proof of work to proof of stake, but there's still going to be gas fees, and
Even with no miners in the process?
So what means from proof of work going to proof of stake is, in the case of proof of work, which we're currently Ethereum blockchain is, like all the gas fees are going to the miners.
Right.
In the case of proof of stake, the gas fees are going to go back to the stakeholders. And with a change that was done recently, some of that Ethereum is going to get burned, right? So right now Ethereum is an inflationary currency, right? So more and more Ethereum is being created, compared to Bitcoin is 21 million, right? Ethereum is expanding. With EIP 15 something 77, I don't remember what it is. They changed the model, and basically they start to burn Ethereum, so it becomes a deflationary currency eventually. Not expected until a couple of years from now.
So it's kind of like a government exercising monetary policy over.
Well, the government is doing an inflationary currency for forever.
You just said, well, I mean, you said Ethereum was expanding. We don't know when it'll end or if it'll.
Yeah, so Ethereum is expanding like the government, but they put in a new rule that's saying, right now, all the gas fees that are coming back, we're going to start burning them. So we're going to kind of taking them off the blockchain, and so we're limiting the supply, and it becomes a deflationary currency.
Okay.
I
Thanks
just
for the
wanted
explanation.
to add some clarity too. Solidity is specific to Ethereum
Yes.
smart contracts. When you start looking at other blockchain protocols, for example Solana, they don't even refer to it as a smart contract. If you were to go to Solana, they call it programs, and they have their own language. Even at ETH Denver, there are workshops on how to create smart contracts using JavaScript. You can use a variety of languages. And then for us newbies who maybe don't have, because he made a very important point, like, you don't just want to get into this space and start coming up with contracts, right, if they're not going to be audited. So like GitHub, or there are other resources that have trusted contracts, like templates that have already been audited and verified. that you can use. So if you wanted it to launch an NFT project on Ethereum now, you can use existing source code to help you along the way and avoid having some holes or pitfalls.
Well, and along that line, if you go to the next slide. So, this is kind of the programming language that we're using in development of all of our projects, which is called DAML. And don't want to go to the details of this, but if you look at the code, it's a lot more readable and user-friendly. You're defining what a bond is in this template. Then you're saying who's the owner, it's the issuer of the bond, who can look at this, the regulator can look at this, and what can you do with it? Well, you can transfer it, you can split it, or you can merge it, right? And that becomes API calls onto this ledger technology. And instead of the 15 steps on Solidity, we just have a one single upload to your smart contract into an environment and get going. So just want to give you a little bit of kind of the flavors. This is like a lot more Solana type. It's different than Solana, but another way of kind of getting into the space without getting burned and a lot of complexity and a lot of security.
People magic?
That was that I put that in there.
No, there's
It
you.
is- Yeah. No, because it is. We've talked about it from the beginning all the way through. This has been community driven. It's people coming together. It's us bonding over a collectible and deciding that we were going to take that and do something with it, or a shared passion, or just we believe there's a better world and we're going to create it. So.
Ditto.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for inviting us.
Oh, we did have another one. Where we threw that in there?
Sure.
Oh, that's important. You've mentioned this a bunch throughout of like
Yeah.
not only people holding themselves accountable to each other, but holding yourself accountable to like the diligence in how you're interacting in different communities, and how you're purchasing different assets, controlling your wallets.
Yeah. I mean, this tool is empowering, right? We talk about this. I have a friend in this space. She says, will the blockchain break chains, right? And enable freedom, but that comes with that comes great responsibility, right? In order to empower ourselves, that comes with very great responsibilities. So just be mindful, like it is a tool, but you have to level up in some areas and be willing to take on that responsibility.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for coming to hang out and explore Web3 a little bit with us. Welcome to stick around, hang out and network a little bit, grab some more beer, play ping pong, however you feel like.
And I'll add, follow us on NFT CLT. We're co-founders, Tony, my husband,
Sorry, I was
myself.
handing out awards at Charlotte, so
Yeah.
students
That sounds pretty important.
Yeah.
there. I had to do it for the kids.
So we have a bi-weekly event every Tuesday at Summit Seltzer if you haven't been there, where we get together. Follow us at NFT CLT on IG and Twitter. And then, like I said, next week we have a Tezos-focused blockchain event on the 23rd, so on a Monday, right by Lost and Found, that craft taste room. And we do have an NFT coming out. I know you guys saw the note up there. You don't. We do have an NFT coming and doing some cool things with DAOs as well. So I would say, get plugged in now as we continue to grow across Charlotte.
And we're and we're here to help the community as well, right? So we're kind of more on the business side of things. But I've been in this space a long time. I've seen the ups and downs of crypto and NFTs. So, if you kind of want to bounce off some ideas, I'll give you free advice on kind of what I think will work or don't work, and help you along to some resources if necessary.
Also, just get this advice now, because in 10 years you have to pay for it. So
Ten,
all
more like two.
Yeah, maybe two. Yeah, like you couldn't talk to Google founders back in the day. Now you can really talk to people who are actually in the space. Very valuable.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Tony.
Sorry, I was like,
Hey, no.
he's had every question in the book. Trying to get on cash prizes. I couldn't believe it. I was like, and it was like asking every question. You know, this exciting time, you got the kids are more important because they could be on Jeeps. You got a chance to learn that word.
Thanks for coming.
It was like one question I love. Like, yeah, okay. Next question. Everybody had to
Yeah, now the fellas, I'm
Nice
like,
space. Beautiful space. It's my first time here, man.
the fellas,
Do some more stuff.
We'd be happy to have you.
I would like to have you come back. We're looking for a meeting right now for business in Web3.
well, I mean, Milton came to Lemonade, but there was something about Lemonade. Like, it's hard to like, yeah. We see his face, maybe you recognize him, but like,
They've run 31 projects so far, and building some really cool software. Creators, new
it's been like one of our
so bring analytics. How many people?
left is one to your right. Yeah, and then also, I mean, there's just a lot going on. So it's just like, I'm happy to be there.
I'm using because I'm working on 5 projects right now, 5 blue chip projects.
And then kind of monitor through the launch and then post-launch, bringing tools to
Yeah, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. 'Cause I got a UK company I just signed on to named Barely Bears. They don't know what it is. Like when they come out with this, they don't know how to do this. And you're using this as that's what everybody's trying to do. It's like you got
Exactly. Like I think it was
say, oh, here's a project.
So like I came on.